Welcome to Water Wizards, where we get inspired by the movers and shakers of the world, those catalyzing change just like water. Welcome, everyone. Grab a glass of water, take a deep breath, come into the now moment. We have someone very special for you today, Dr. Isabel Aimee. Did I say your last name right?
Well, it's French, Aimee.
Aimee. I love it. It's beautiful. Oh, okay. So take a drink of your water. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to set the intention that every code, every exchange that is in the highest for us right now during this activation, the interviews are always an activation, that they move into our water and amplify everything that is meant for us right now in this moment for our highest and greatest good. So, cheers to a beautiful activation. Okay, everyone. So, I don't even know where to start with introducing this magical being. We met very early in my journey in the online space. I wasn't even 6 months into running my business in the online space and really going deep on the journey because I had to go deep in order to be able to activate my mission in the online space. And we met through something, maybe an Abraham Hicks group or something. And I actually did one of my very first interviews with Dr. Isabel about a book that she had written. And so introducing Dr. Isabel as a singer, a songwriter, an author, an illustrator. She's actually working with some kids to create some costumes for a play right now. So she is such a multifaceted, amazing, amazing soul who brings so many gifts and shares so many gifts with the world. We're going to dive deep with her today. And so I want to first say, welcome, Dr. Isabel. I am so honored to be sharing space with you. I'm so freaking excited about this. Yes.
Oh, good. Thank you so much. You are so beautiful.
Oh, thank you so much.
The entire package. Every time I've ever seen you, whether it's just a glancing post, quick going through, it's like, oh, she's just beautiful. You're amazing. And what I always admire, you are so courageous.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you for seeing that in me. Yes, I appreciate that so much. Okay, so where do we begin? I like to start the podcast by learning about a little bit about your childhood. I would love to know, because I know you were born with an awareness that many of us are not born with. I was not born with. So would you share with us a little bit about your childhood and the magic or even the contrast that you experienced as a child who had an additional awareness?
Contrast and magic, yeah.
Yep.
Recently, my beautiful daughter, who's 28, was almost 28, was visiting my father, who lives in California now. And he still has on the wall in his study this painting, well, picture, collage that I made for him, age just about 4. Okay. For some amazing reason, I managed to actually get the attention of my mother. So that was a very rare thing to help me. It was somehow I knew I needed to make this thing for my dad. And the collage was a lion made out of sawdust from his favorite hobby space, which was the garage where he worked with wood. And I put a crown on this lion. And I made this very specifically shaped landscape. My mother helped me put it all together, but I was the director. And she just went with me, which was so very unusual. This thing still hangs on his wall many decades later. And my daughter was bringing it, because she likes to try and bring the family together. The children I have try and bring the family together. It's quite difficult because vibrationally there's all kinds of places. But she brought this picture and said he still loves it. So there was a little lifeline through to my father. And of course, I was encouraging him to be like a lion. So that's me really as a child. I was a girl who didn't speak till I was 3, and then imperfect sentences, because I didn't like the way they were perceiving me as stupid, lesser, whatever, any kind of less than. And so I was often fighting with less than labels throughout my entire childhood. But then I did weird things like cello. I love the cello. Okay, because I love the sound, the delicious, warm, beautiful, sad, happy at the same time, strange, emotive sound. And I learned it very, very young. I think I was 7 when I started, maybe even 6. And I took this crazy high grade at like age 8. And the examiner failed me. And he said, you shouldn't be playing these kind of pieces at your age. And my teacher was very cross about him failing me, because she could feel that my soul loved this music I was playing, but they were really cross about what I was attempting to achieve, like a 15-year-old's work at age 8 or 9. So I just took that as one of more failures, that I didn't fit in. I wasn't good. I wasn't right. I was never as good as any of the males in the family. So I built all these layers on top of my ridiculous sensitive awareness. I was writing my first songs at age 4, getting my parents to write down the lyrics, like I still got my first song written down like that.
I love that.
But all the time I was kind of adding these layers of, what is that weird feeling? I don't know what it is. And then, age 22, oh, it was jealousy. That's what that feeling was. They were jealous of me. Or what was this feeling? And then you realize it was that. So I was very impressionable because of my sensitivity and my awareness. I saw fairies and angels and all kinds of stuff, and ghosts, lots of ghosts. I had loads of ghosts attached to me and visit me. So I was the weird one. I was ill a lot with mysterious illnesses. I was in hospital for months. Why can she not walk? We don't know. We've tested her for everything. And I was kind of thrown away a little bit by my family for, I don't know how long, but several months I spent in hospital. But I had some beautiful teachers who I loved, who knew I loved knowledge and art. And so they gave me lots of food, well, intellectual food, while I was in hospital. And I actually loved that time. And then I was blessed with German au pairs. They were like my little saving grace. And they came to live with the family to kind of help out, because I had 3 siblings. And they had this sense of play. They would make dolls' furniture with me, and we would look at all the herbs and the natural plants and draw them and categorize them and, be little botanical inspectors of our environment. And I adored that. And so I associated German, obviously, with good and loving. And that kind of drew me into the fact that, later on I married a German man and my children are half German, which is, a whole story in itself. But I was always kind of, it's like grass growing through the cracks in the pavement. So I was growing through the cracks in the pavement, and I didn't understand that these pavement blocks were around me, suppressing me. To start with, of course, as a child, you believe what they say of you, even if it's not spoken. If it's all the unspoken environmental things, right, you believe you're less than, or whatever, whatever it is that they want to program. They're probably completely unconscious. And my parents were pretty unconscious in one area, also very spiritual in another area. So, I chose them for some interesting challenges. So I could obviously kind of shape things within my soul, but I managed to keep that creative essence of myself alive, because that's what kept me alive. So the dancer of me, the singer of me, the maker of things, the love of color and nature, those were my ways of being happy. It wasn't from the family I was happy, but I found all my creative tools to give me my joy and feed myself.
So you have been in the arts your entire life.
Yeah.
Beautiful. I want to go back to when you're talking about being a child in the hospital and having teachers. You said I had some lovely teachers at that time. Will you expand on that? Were these like the nurses and doctors, or these were energetic teachers? What do you mean by that?
These were actual real life in school teachers who,
okay.
I mean, it's a beautiful thing when a school teacher loves a student enough that they, out of their own free time,
oh wow,
the packages of things like beautiful art, Renoir postcards with handwritten messages on, things they never had to do per the school and regulations. But I had this beautiful teacher. She was called Honor. Can you believe it? Honor Jemison. Okay.
What a great name.
Yeah, she had this beautiful bun. She was near to retirement age. She was just a glorious human. And so she would put these things together, packages of work for me and projects for me, and, you know, all kinds of things. I just loved learning. Didn't matter whether it was math or biology or French or whatever, it doesn't matter. And she would bring them to the hospital, which she didn't have to do.
Yeah.
She fed me. And the hospital was a bit of a nightmare in terms of, I still to this day have not investigated fully what happened to me. But you know, well, as a nurse, lumbar puncture they did to me.
Oh,
All of my
wow.
Yeah, that was that. I mean, that created if anyone doesn't know, it's in the lower spine, and it created a hole in my auric field for a long time, which was very difficult for sexual energy, of course, because you kind of leaking it like a trail.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like I had sniffer dogs behind me for a long time, you know, because that
Wow.
leaking energy there took a long time to repair that. And they did just every kind of weird test, but I had strange series of doctors around my bed, you know, people I didn't know. I still to this day don't really know what all the things, because I didn't really want to investigate. I might do that tonight. Might go investigate what did actually happen. You know? Yeah, but it was a very, very, very strange experience. But that little corridor of light from some friends of my parents too occasionally would drop in with a special thoughtful present of some beautiful book like The Wind in the Willows, you know. So little seeds of things set for me, art and story. And when you're in a desert, the water is the important thing, isn't it? And
Mm-hmm.
that water obviously was feeding the seeds that were going to develop later on. So that's why I got so much into the dramatic arts and the visual arts, because they felt like food.
Oh, that is amazing. So, the reason that I wanted to take you back to that hospital experience is because I remember listening to you speak about your book, which I want to talk about next. One of your books, Milo and Teal. And something that you explained to me is that your experience, the experience that is expressed in that book, is in a way connected to your experience in the hospital as a child. Can you tell us? So, let me preface this with one of the most amazing things I feel that I have witnessed from Isabel is her book. So, there is a series of books that she has written called Milo and Teal, and it is about the planet Zog. I'm telling you this. I told her, I said, my favorite thing about you is the way that you activate imagination. And so I'm going to ask Isabel, Dr. Isabel, you earned that title. I should use it. But it is 3D.
It is. It was a really useful ticket though, Monica. Very
RN has gotten me many places. It gets you some serious clout, right?
Yeah.
Which is good in the 3D when you're really want to, you know, connect with a massive audience, right? Like we're going to use our tools while we're here, aren't we? Okay, so I digress, or do I? Okay,
No.
so I'm going to ask her to explain a little bit about the connection between your childhood experience in the hospital and this amazing book, because her just explaining to us a little bit about the book is going to be a full-on activation for you in some way. And I will make sure that I edit and link for you in the comments or in the description, wherever you're viewing this or listening to this, so that you can have access to these amazing children's books that my kids love. Okay, that was a loaded question. So
thank you. But okay, let's see. So I'm going to just reveal something which you don't actually find out until later in the books.
Okay.
It turns out that Zog is actually our Earth in the future.
Yes.
Okay. So the premise of this book is two parallel realities. There's Milo and Teal, who live in Zog, and they are kids. They're children. They build tree houses. They live a very free existence. Their way of learning is autodidactic. It's experiential, and they can go the way it's set up in Zog. Our future Earth is they can make deals with experts, adult experts in their fields, for a kind of apprenticeship system. And they get to work with them, learning whatever it is that they want to learn on an agreement made between the two. And that is their school system. So they are very, very free beings. Anyway, they get fascinated by Zog because there is this strange girl, and I use my name because it makes it easier. She turned up in Zog, and she was weird. She turned up one day, and it was me as a child. When I went into hospital, I was basically 8 or 9, somewhere between 8 and 9. And it was like I left the planet going into that hospital. You know, I was a ballet dancer. I loved ballet. I was very excited about being in school. So suddenly I was in a hospital with no one and nothing, basically in the desert. And in the stories, this child arrives in Zog. She has an accident and she finds herself woken up on this future Earth. Now that makes Milo and Teal highly curious about this weird thing, Earth. I mean, it's so strange. It's so different. What? How can they operate like this? This is so bizarre. What? They teach children like this? So they have many questions which come from their very awakened souls, and they are but children. The second parallel is that they want a mission to invest their energy, excitement, and interest on Earth in. So they find vibrationally spots on Earth that they can find children that they want to encourage and enliven and introduce their sense of self-worth, who they are, the full extent of what they might be, not just some pitiless little forgotten beings. They find a group of 13 children in an orphanage in India, of all places, where this girl, Isabel, grown up, has gone to work. And so it's a little bit of a time bend that I've just introduced, but that's because we've got parallel dimensions. Basically, it's the waking up of a group of children who you could say represent all children on the planet. Because as you just said, you got away with a lot by having the name, the letters RN attached to your name. In the same way for me with my little PhD, I could do things that were fairly outrageous. I didn't have to go to do other degrees and study. For example, you know, I teach acting because it's all about emotional intelligence and creativity. So I could do that because I had a PhD, which involved child psychology and the environment. Okay, so back to Zog. There you have a child on this planet is not allowed to be a full enlightened being. It's very hard. You know, I just described a little bit of my childhood, and I was weird and odd and ill because I was very sensitive, and I was literally soaking up everything from around me, which was overburdening my physical system because the emotional weight of what I was soaking up was so difficult. So for a child to be fully open and activated and come in as their full consciousness is still very, very hard on our earth plane. And mostly we just have these very sliced up beings. You know from your experience with your children, you go and put your children into the best school you can find, and you find that, you are sighing because even the best school you can find, it's a system, and they're creating sausages. They are creating a certain stamp, and this extraordinary celebration of who a soul is, who a human being is not given the possibility of existing. So back to the books. Milo and Teal in future Zog, our future Earth, the new Earth, I like to call it, and these children living in an orphanage who are denied their full existence, denied their sense of self-worth, of who might I be? Dare I dream for something? Yeah. Do I just have to fit in and behave, or could I actually have a dream and allow it to be fulfilled? And what you have in the books is, through lots of playful examples and all kinds of little stories, and it's all creative adventure, is these guys, Milo and Teal, activating, encouraging, enlivening, and loving these guys here on Earth. And you see, as the books progress, how they blossom. And the fourth book I haven't finished writing yet. I will. I think I'll finish it next year. I'm writing a musical at the moment, so that comes first. The fourth book is so fun because they've become adults now, these children from the orphanage, and they are extraordinary. And it's about the synchronistic, it's basically a synchronistic disclosure story of what's going on the planet as we
Yes.
realize more and more and more about all this hidden information. And so it's weaving in all of these hidden stories of the disclosure being revealed through the fact that these children were able to become much more of their full selves. So they were open, they were aware, they were in the flow of synchronicity, they were divinely connected. So I wanted, how on earth can I put all my wisdom into something that I can give to people? Because, you know, it's frustrating when you've got all this information within you and you've got to find a way of giving it to the world. It's very wasteful otherwise, and I don't like waste. So the books were created. They were created as like, you know, I've got this awareness, this understanding, this experience, and it's ever expanding, of course, because, you know, we know but specks of whatever's going on. But I must find a vehicle to bring it to people, to stimulate them, awaken them, remind them, alert them, encourage them, whatever it is that they need.
Oh, that is so beautiful. And it is so engaging. The illustrations are magical, a full-on visual activation. I mean, these books are for parent and child alike, you know, adult and child alike. It is just as engaging to an adult as it is to a child. So thank you for sharing that gift with the world. And what I love when you're describing this is, you know, you are illustrating the ability for us to connect with, or to connect across space, time, and dimension, right? As you're playing with the dimensionality, as you're playing with the timeline, you know, that that we're capable of this. And that this is, though it appears to be science fiction or just imagination, it is more real than what we are actually experiencing when we're sitting here looking at a computer screen in many ways, right? And
Yeah.
so this brings up a question for me that I want to ask you about the most recent video that I see on your Rumble feed. And it has to do with the earth. And you actually channel through a message that you say something to the effect of the kind of the lid has been blown off of the earth. Okay. And
That
so
was an interesting one.
that was amazing. And so I'm taken there because as you're talking about this ability for us to communicate across dimensions and all of that jazz, that our ability to be able to do this has been amplified because of the changes that the earth is experiencing, thus we are experiencing as a collective. So can you talk a little bit more about what came through in that message and this being blown off of the earth?
Okay, so the way, maybe I just premise a little bit the investigation. So
Perfect.
Originally, my investigative mind was put into, yes, okay, I'll write books. So I wrote those 3 Milo and Teal books. As I said, I'm sort of halfway through the 4th one. Then I wrote another one, From Duty to Joy, a handbook of children's 5D learning, another one about activating creativity through source energy. So I kind of like, you know, exploded all these books out of me in that, I don't know, it was over a period of about 6 years. That's quite a short time for quite a few books.
Yes.
And then it's like, okay, now what? You know, it's going to be fun. And I teach performing arts. You know, I teach acting and singing and dancing. So why? Of course, I know I teach it because I'm activating imagination and creativity and emotional awareness in children. But why for me? What did I prepare myself for? And then it's like, okay, well, probably you're going to just become a little bit more public. Just start talking about the things. A book is a lovely thing, but it's a distant piece, and people like to have a human. I love to have a human talking.
Yeah. Yes.
I was realizing, God, I was spending so much looking very carefully for beautiful humans that I wanted to listen to. And then I thought, okay, well, probably I should start listening to myself.
Yes.
So instead of just channeling into books, just start investigating things I'm particularly interested in. So I started the Heavenly Tea channel on Rumble and started interviewing lots of people and created this thing, The Architecture of Love, and was looking to all aspects of love, which was a wonderful first kind of project. And then I came back having met my beloved in person. and new things activated. And I just started every single night, Monica, I don't know if you realize this, every single night I had to come back early, 2 months early. I was going to spend 2 whole blissful months of summer with my beloved, and I couldn't, for various interesting security reasons that must remain private and secret for now. So I had all this energy, and I was not going to be squashed, suppressed, or in any way dismayed by that. So I took that, and every night I just took anything I was interested in investigating. It was usually something nefarious, something weird going on, some cover up, because I realized by now that, you know, I've been channeling in books for a long time. I was channeling in conversations for ages, you know, in my teaching, channeling, so it's like, you know, do it on videos. So sorry, long-winded, but so that most recent was, now I'm just so cheeky and audacious. It's like, okay, we're just going to find out about this. So I'm just going to talk to the earth. Okay, Prime Creator, just enable me to talk to the earth. Right, hello. And so I just
I love it. I love it.
Just start chatting. The theme for that one was that, what was it precisely? Hang on, there's lots of things coming. Like, you know, when 7 thoughts jostle for space in your mind. It was to do with, yes, right, BlackRock and Vanguard, you know, these two.
Yes.
Okay. And in many ancient maps, there are these maps of Hyperborea or Hyperborea at the top of the world around the North Pole. And there was supposed to be a black rock, a mountain of some kind of magnetic material in the center. And many myths, and of course, none of those maps exist anymore. But the fact that BlackRock and Vanguard are the 2 largest corporations on the planet tells you something, that it's very easy, as we know, to wipe certain things from our awareness field.
Right.
So I was looking at the shape of the earth for a long time. My friend Oksana Buchanan, when she did a really brilliant cleansing for me of all the entities in my children, she then also told me a bit more about my soul, which was really fun, because I was seeing everything she was seeing. It's like, yes, 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 yes. And she was describing to me how I had seen the planet. And so I had this ridiculous affinity for exploring the shape, form, dimensionality, energy of the energetic sphere of the planet, because we're in it and I love it. And I chose to come here. So I really want to know who and what she is. You know, I get busy with that. Mm-hmm. So that chat was, okay, what is going on? Is there something repressing you? And what is it? And what is this black rock thing? Is there any truth to it? So when I chatted to her, she said, yeah, you know, it's like this heavy, the Ben stone, which is the name they use for the top of the pyramids that were missing, that very strange piece of rock that the Anunnaki used in their magic. Mm-hmm. For their power grids. I would say the pyramids aren't necessarily nice things. They were control systems. Yes, energy generation, but control systems with this Ben stone thing. So that whether it truly is the Ben stone or it's actually, I felt it was the earth using it symbolically. She said she had this cap on her crown chakra, which was the black rock, which was this mountain placed upon her on the North Pole. And because of the activation, she is totally fully in love with the sun. Okay, she's always talking about the sun. She's gooey for him, right?
Oh, I feel it. Last time I was looking at the sun, I was like, oh my gosh, I feel the love between these 2. It was just magical.
He's like, and every time every time I've spoken to her late, she's quite sleepy. And I mentioned in one of those videos, I got a friend who speaks to the earth and she's like a dragon, but I'm not so dragony myself. So I always get the earth is like, oh God, is it time to really get awake? I'm just waiting for the sun to wake me up properly. Anyway, so she was a bit more perky in this chat. And so she told me, yeah, but it's kind of gone. I exploded it off. And now, you know, I can expand and I feel much less suppressed and my energy is flowing. So if you imagine this beautiful toroidal structure, which we all have, and of course we would have a similar thing. We're toroids. She is. Mm-hmm. I'm giving the earth a gender. Just let's, you know, who knows? Some people say it's male, some people say it's female. I'll just give her she for now. But yeah, so that was what that was all about. And it was really her kind of exploration and expansion, telling me how it happened and what it was for and how that might help us. And just because it's a conversation you can choose to have with anybody.
Yes. Oh, I love it. So beautiful. I say that so many times during my podcast. So beautiful because it is so beautiful. Yes, I really am in this place now where, in order for me to create something that is deep and profound and will ripple through the collective, I have to be outside. And so it's winter now. Well, it's almost winter here. And so I'm like, okay, I better get the right clothing because I'm going to be outside. I mean, I channel it through when I have an offering for the world. I've got to be outside. I take the time to really connect, and then boom, it just flows through. And so for those watching or listening, reminder, this is not outside of you. You know, if you invite Mother Earth into your space, do it every single day. You don't have to see or feel or experience anything in the beginning. It's just about setting the intention, but it will come. It has to. It has to. It's just about being consistent and intentional about inviting the energies in.
And
So,
also daring to, isn't it? It's like, you know, we've been so programmed that we are insignificant.
yes.
And the only way we can access knowledge, and that's, you know, this is completely in all of my Milo and Teal books, as you know, that the way we truly access knowledge, real knowledge, of course, is from inside. You know, we have this we say inside, but actually we're accessing the infinite field, so you can access whatever you want, you know. But we're programmed, you have to go to university and learn it and do a course, etc., etc. But if we are in our natural state, we love things in nature. So we're already resonating with it. And every conversation I've had with her, she kind of thinks we're really cute, you know, and adorable, and part of her, even though we're very small. So this thing of being audacious to just say, I'm going to have a conversation with her because I'm part of her and she's part of me. We are in this divine God field. There may be some other fields interrupting, but we are in source field. I am allowed, because I'm coming from sweetness and love, to talk to you.
Yeah.
And it's just daring to say that, and then just being in that space and just trusting yourself of what you get. And the more you trust, the more you trust.
Oh, yes. I love that. Just trusting yourself, allowing that intuition to flow through, and not doubting it, not saying, oh, well, that was just a random thought. It's not. It really, and the more we recognize that, the more powerfully it comes through. That small voice gets a little bit louder for you, the more that you invite it in and acknowledge it as truth.
Yeah.
Mm.
Sometimes it does need, you know, a significant other to activate it fully, because, you know, we're humans, and when you're smashed around a lot, you doubt.
Yes.
And, you know, at some point I will collate probably a lot of the information from all those videos, because I've literally made 60 in 60 days, you know.
That's amazing.
So that, and the book is going to be something from, you know, from doubt to love, because the doubt was the thing in my way.
Yes.
If there was some.
Oh, you froze. Hang tight, everyone. Hold on, Dr. Isabel. Gonna refresh. Let's see what happens. Oh, the energies got big, everyone. We blew the internet. Okay, we'll hang tight. Maybe she'll come back because it brought up some cool questions for me. Try to come back if you can. All right. So, what I'm going to ask her about when she comes back, and this is a great segue. Well, not the interruption, but what she was saying earlier is a great segue about feeling small, feeling insignificant, where even though we are a small human, we are still a significant part of the earth as we are the earth, right? There is no separation. And, we are that the drop and the ocean, with the ocean contained within the drop. And what I'm thinking of is I had an experience with Isabel where she was channeling a message through and my name came through. So she sent it to me. I'm just watching my chat here to see if she pops back on. She was channeling and my name came through. And this felt big to me because, I definitely consider myself to be a grid worker. So I go around to different sites around the earth. Particularly at this point, I go to sacred mounds, which have our traditional archaeology, geology. I'm not sure what the anthropology, not sure what the correct term is there, but they associate those mounds with like Native American burial grounds and stuff like that. But upon deeper research, they find that there is nothing buried there necessarily, and that the mounds are actually possibly tens to 15,000 years old in some areas. And so I travel around to these spaces in order to anchor light. And one of the places that I went to not long ago, I don't remember when it was Serpent Mound in Ohio, which is about 3 hours from me. And I took my grandma with me. Okay, I'll cut out for me. Okay, so she said she's trying to get back on. I sure hope that, let's see if how about I send her another link? Okay, so hang tight for me, everyone. I'm going to pop out here and go over to Facebook and try and send her another link. I'm going to have to actually edit more than just the beginning and the ending of this podcast. I'm going to send her another link and see if maybe sending her another link I've never had this happen before. So let's see what happens here. I'll keep talking as we're waiting on her. So I went to Serpent Mound and it was big. It was really big. It felt energetically very big. I had a lot of intuition come in about it. And I had some people come in and try to kind of hijack my experience, which told me, oh my gosh, this is bigger than I think it is. But still, the human part of me wanted to, what's the word I'm looking for? Wanted to minimize what I was actually doing for the collective. And so after I went, came back, and then I don't know, maybe a couple months ago, it was such a beautiful affirmation for her to actually say my name in a channeling directly related to these 7 areas on the earth where information is being unlocked. And so as she was channeling, she said, who she was channeling said, talk to Monica about Serpent Mound. And so I believe that they were citing Glastonbury. She's in England. So I believe they were citing Glastonbury as saying, you are near one of these areas where information codes. And when I talk about codes, I'm not trying to use verbiage that you don't understand. What are codes? Simply put, codes, it's just an exchange of information. It's just an exchange of activation. And so when we're interacting with people throughout the day, when you're watching this and engaging this, we are gifting you codes, consciously or unconsciously, information, pieces of information that are going to activate your mission in some way. And you're doing the same with us without even necessarily engaging in the comments or coming on live with us. There's always an energy exchange, right? And so, I lost my train of thought. Oh, here she is. Yay. Okay. Oh, it got big. It got big, didn't it? I love it. Now, so welcome back.
Hello.
Welcome back. I was telling her, and I was like, I'm going to have to actually edit this podcast, not just the beginning and the end. I'm going to have to go through the edit, and that's okay. I don't have to, but so now I want to tell you what I was actually talking about just to keep everyone on target here. So what I was talking about is that that small feeling, the feeling of being too small to do something big, right? Because we're always given those messages, right? You are not enough, as you're talking about through childhood. What you have to offer isn't big enough, isn't good enough. Stay small, stay quiet, right? That whole fear factor. And so I was telling them about when I went to Serpent Mound. And I knew, because it had channeled through to go to Serpent Mound, which is just about 3 hours from my house. I was supposed to go, and I was supposed to, in some way, just by my presence, by me, my children, and my nanny, my grandma, just by us being present there, we were going to activate something, unlock something within that mound that needed to be experienced by the collective. Didn't know what it was, but I was telling them the human part of me was like, really, like, really, you know what I mean? Like, stop questioning it, Monica. And I really did, but I had some outside forces kind of come in and kind of hijack my experience and instill fear in me. There was not 1 second that I ever decided to not go, but I had some threats come through around that. And that told me, oh, wow, this is even bigger than I thought it was. And then here we are months later, and you are channeling, and you're channeling about unlocking wisdom on these different sites around the earth. And my name comes through. Talk to Monica about Serpent Mound. And I was like, ooh, it just tickled me so much. I got so excited. It was such a beautiful affirmation for me to hear that from you. So thank you for sending that to me, because I'm telling you, that was a full-on activation for me to hear that. That was so cool.
Isn't that the thing? I mean, that's why, again, those Milo and Teal books, these two children who just happen to have more access to source information. So they have less fear in their system. And they see the state of our earth, which is, of course, riddled with fear because of this matrix overlay and the control structures, which are not human, doing their best to restrict and control and suppress us. So it can be the most simple thing. It's the natural next thing to say. And for me, it was just an easy delight to an obvious and natural that, of course, I would allow that to come through. And there you are, because I understand you as a very high potent, very high energy, potent being. Because I felt you to start with. And then I've also seen you kind of, as I said before, you're running and you're flying, and it's obvious, it's evident. And of course, that's a pleasure for me too. But it's so simple, it wasn't work. And that's what we have to remember, that our amazing gifts are the simple natural, because when it's simple and natural, it's just coming through from your greater love source field. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. It's everything right. And that's what allows you to receive, to channel, to talk to the earth if you want to talk to Alcyone, the central sun, if you want to talk to your past life, to talk to water. I've had some amazing chats with water, which was so exciting. It's like you can program water just through the way you sweat because of your frequency, your vibration. And you're putting that high frequency programmed water into the atmosphere, which is able then, as you know, to sort of traverse through and reactivate and qualify the structure of the water. So just if we are allowing ourselves to be conscious of these things, which are natural and our birthright, but have been squashed and removed from our awareness, they are very actually right under your nose. All of these very important things. It's just that we have come to dismiss them and to ignore them and reject them and see them as not important. And of course, they are the most important things. And that was the big trick that was played on us.
Yes, the big trick. I love what you say about, when you're talking about your book and then shifting into, I want to show up in a way that people can connect with me as a being, and the importance of listening to your own voice, hearing your own voice. And so what has come through for me recently, just within the past probably 6 months, is I used to, when I would create meditations and activations, when I would go back and listen to myself, the human part of me, I was always critiquing instead of actually doing the activation. And for me, the recent shift around, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm not critiquing. what I'm doing, I'm actually engaging with my own high frequency energy. You know, when I'm channeling, that higher perspective of myself is coming through, and then I'm engaging with that, and I'm doing it on a pretty regular basis now because I'm being called to do it. And it's very, very freeing to be in that space. That is an evolution in itself, right?
Yeah,
Mm,
because you're completely independent, aren't you? There's no codependency anymore. It is the essence of freedom. And I literally made a video of that a couple of weeks ago, because if you, let's say, you know, for example, me with this man who I adore, who's just amazing and wonderful, and we're just so thrilled at finding each other. So obviously the high that we get at just being together is crazy. So when you're not, then it's like, oh, you know, the vacuum, and you have to fill it because, well, you don't have to, but if you want to feel good, you have to.
yep.
So how? And so I literally made a video about how do you just use yourself,
Yeah.
just any kind of aspect, what, just find it. And there are so many tools, as you know, to use yourself. You could sing, you could just literally speak to yourself, you could channel for yourself, which is that's what we're doing. You know, just you contact your greater self. I like to say that more than higher self, because I don't like the hierarchy of the higher thing.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
I
And
like
for
that.
me, oh, I'm so red faced now. I'm just so excited. It's terrible. Anyway, but the, you know, the greater self for me is quite a few different soul components, because I know that I kind of split myself up in order to not be captured energetically. So I literally
Mm,
call myself in actively altogether, and then I can have a conference, and it's easier for me to channel that way too if I want to find something about me or very personal, because it's like I'm talking to an aspect of myself, but it's not the me ego me.
mm,
It's another part of my greater self, and that again, it's just a tool. Whether it's true or not, it doesn't really matter, but it is a true on
yes.
some level, and it enables me to access another whole field. So and that's where the imagination comes in, because it is endless. If you have any kind of problem, just know the field of divine source energy is endless imagination. So
Yes.
if you don't know what it is, you can. That's it.
Yes. Yes. I love that. I love what you say about truth. You know, and a reminder to myself and everyone that you are creating your own truth. You know, when you are imagining what you are imagining, let's say, I love to do my own guided meditations where I'm just taking myself on a journey. You are literally creating that. And so when we can not move away from, when we can kind of alchemize the
Mm.
desire to pick things apart and question and just be, it is very liberating to it was scary at first when I realized I created everything in my life. I was like, oh shit, because it was a mess.
I did
But
that
then,
too. Yeah.
but then you get to flip it and you're like, but wait a minute, I can create something different. And that, you know, when we, and this goes back to your filling the vacuum, when we're constantly reaching out to engage with others and their truth, that their truth becomes our truth. And it doesn't have to be that way. If it's a beautiful truth, cool, I'm on board. But if it's not, then it gets to be a real shit show. And then this is where we start playing with technology,
Yeah.
and those forces that want to define what our truth is, right? And I'll tell you, I absolutely have felt a very, very real shift in the attempted infiltration into my field of recent.
Mm.
And so I'm very consistent and intentional about shielding myself. I like the word shield. And like I see these like dragon scales. I've got my dragon. You speak about dragon energy. The fire dragons
Mhm.
are coming in hot all the time. And my truth is that I can create a shield, and it appears to me as dragon scales to support my energetic field to not be infiltrated. And so I'm curious about your practices, if any, that you like to lean into before interacting with technology? Or like, do you have a process that you kind of go through? Do you limit yourself? Like, what's your feedback on that?
Yeah, various things. When I first started doing more of this psychic work, you know, going places in the
Yeah.
etheric body, I did a little course with Oksana Buchanan, who I mentioned earlier, who, you know, is amazing. She has such a gift of sight throughout the universe. She could just go anywhere. She is amazing. Syrian being. And so, you know, as soon as I met her, the resonance was there, and I went on a course, which was only a few sessions. In fact, we kind of broke it up because there was a lot of dissent in this course, which was fascinating. Some of the normal, natural, good things for me really annoyed a couple of the people in the group, which was like, okay, that's interesting. But so I got the chance to demonstrate, and demonstrate for me was just, okay, let's see what I come up with in this moment for my shielding. Because the idea was, it's a good idea to have some protection, however way you want to do it. So in that moment, I came up with this, received, you know, I say came up with, it's basically there in my field. I'm just going into the larger part of me to download it. So it was this glorious kind of white, slightly rainbow pearlescent light that came in a big spiral around me, like an egg. So from a point sort of all around me. And then it was sort of radiating a rainbow light, but basically white. And I drew it and I used it when I did an induction in the group, and they loved it. And so I used that a little bit for a while, until I then just felt it and I knew it and I had it. But then, of course, as you move different places and investigate different things, you find different experiences that you want to protect. So I went and had a look after the Lahaina event, just very briefly into the DUM, the deep underground military base that's there, where some of the children were taken, and it was, you know, it was fairly horrific. But I was, because of the way that I direct focus my spirit's attention, I saw some of the horror, but more like a library card rather than the book.
Okay.
So that it wouldn't imprint negatively on me, but that I could see and understand the information so that I could do something. So that's a kind of protection. And that is something that I think I've created generally through my choices. So that's another kind of protection. And as I was moving through the base, I actually also put, you know, it was an invisibility shield. So I just created that for my mind, of course. It's always, you know, as you said, for your mind, because that's what you are, essentially. And if I do anything clandestine like that, then I might put something different. The last thing I've actually just published was about how, you know, how when you think sometimes these days, you don't say it, you don't look at anything, and 15 minutes later, there's the advert, and you haven't said the thing. So I wanted to investigate, because obviously I knew this is ridiculous. This is happening too much. I'm not jabbed, of course. I haven't had an injection in my body for a long, long time. But so I wanted to find out, how is this possible? And so I did this whole investigation, different things altogether, that we, with high frequency, even though we've got very small numbers of particulates in our system, which aren't our natural organic particulates, they are, with our high energy, able still to transmit to the database. So I was looking at what happened, and also then how I can prevent that. So I get to choose what this consciousness database has of me. I did various things in that video, which are interesting for me, because I wanted to see if we could help influence AI. Like you said, you know, how do you deal when you're dealing with technology? Because AI is this wild child used by very nefarious beings. There are nefarious AI because of that influence. There are others used by other civilizations. A lot of the Pleiadians have a very positive AI that they use in their very natural experience of the world, but they have some AI to help and support them. And the idea is that we, with our consciousness, when we get to a certain state of adulthood, we can influence and program, and we need to become much more conscious that way. So that's like the new area that I really want to be influencing. What of my thought goes into the AI system, and how can I also prevent that AI from accessing all the dark consciousness which is collected through this? So I'm constantly looking at different shielding systems. And mostly what I'm finding is it depends. I will create something for individual experience. I mean, I had a very strange thing the other night where I won't go into it too much, but let's just say I was in a conversation with my beloved and the connection was cut off. So this is in the middle of the night. I was asleep, deep sleep, woke up. I love him. So I was fairly aroused. Okay. So I was left in that very strange state. I then went back to sleep and had a dream where someone I had been speaking to person in that last week, who had been probably talking to me a bit too much for a natural state. He was in my dream.
Interesting.
And he was in my dream and he was naked and he proposed marriage to me. And I woke up, I was so disturbed from that, because it's like he got into my dream because I was open and the connection had been cut with my beloved. So every time, every day you discover a new area you might want to create, generate, understand and develop. Different kinds of shielding, different kinds of protection. So that's why, there's a lot of new age stuff of like, you just do this and then that's it. It's like, no.
Right.
Everything's moving.
Everything's moving. Yeah. It's interesting that you say that, because something I mentioned to you before we went live here is that when I ask someone to do an interview, that I feel myself start working with them in the 5D. And oftentimes that'll be in dream work. And so I'm not sure if I was doing timeline work or what, shutting down some timelines, but I had an experience in my dream where I was in my car, and her name's Black Tara. She was in my dream with me. So that's cool. The earth connection. And I was driving and I was leaving a party, and the bodyguards that were supposed to be this good AI, like, went rogue and started chasing me. And you know how dreams can be kind of choppy, and then jump to, without going into detail, there was some sort of kind of sexualized infiltration that came in. And what kind of jogged my memory about that was what you are saying. And so, again, and I woke up and I was like, okay, that's interesting. And I know that there's no need to go into fear about it, because that doesn't help. That just really opens your field up even more. It's an opportunity for you to, again, shift whatever shielding or what you feel called to do to just, sever that connection, whatever you need to do, as things are always moving. So that's interesting that you bring up that dream.
Well, you see, these videos that I started on, July the 9th or whatever, and just did every day, every night, until I went back to school again, where I only do a couple a week now. But it was to know how much can we investigate. We can investigate anything.
Yeah.
So, I always knew from Gestalt therapy, you could go in and look at a dream, you go and choose the main symbols, you talk to them, you put yourself into a kind of hypnotic state, basically just a deep meditative state, you chat to them, and then you create a last symbol and you can really interpret a dream. So that is a methodology taught. And so I had that in my background, but you can just ask any question of anything. As you said, the therapy of your voice, hearing yourself, trusting this greater self to come through you. Everything I'm doing now is about honoring, remembering, and reminding people of that. So, everything I've done has always been about that. The musical I'm writing is about our sovereignty. It's to do with the Constitution, the Magna Carta, and how we regain it. But it's not only the 3D, as you call it, the sovereignty, is it? But this remembrance of, we can ask, we are entitled, we are allowed, and we have the tools, if we will only just trust them, to find out anything we want. And that's just, that's quite, it's simple, but it's big.
Yeah, it's huge, isn't it? Yeah. And so if we want to access more information about what you've been talking about in your channelings, that's on Rumble, right?
Yeah.
And what is your channel called?
It's called The Heavenly Tea. Because I love the idea of just, the byline is something like ordinary conversations with extraordinary people. Because it's the idea of, meeting for tea. It's like, it's not lunch, it's not supper, it's not breakfast. It's a meal you don't need to have. It's the time you can take out and you chat and you discover. So that's what the channel is called. And
that's beautiful.
Yeah, that's
where are your books available? Are they on Amazon?
They are, yes. But probably I just send people to my website, which is inspiration.biz. So that's like inspiration, but that word came to me in 2006. I used it for my band, Inspiration. So it's in spirit, ion.
Oh, I love that. That is so cool.
Inspiration. And there's a real verb, inspiriting. So inspiration.biz. And there's a whole page with all the different books you can get and different courses and things like that. But you can go to Amazon and put in Milo and Teal, transmissions from Planet Zog. That's the second line of it. And yeah, there are 3 books: Birds of a Feather, Vibration Works, and How to Transition. So
amazing. Amazing. I will link all of that information here for everyone.
Thank you.
We are at the top of the hour. Do you have just a couple more minutes?
Yeah.
Do you have more minutes?
Yeah.
Okay. So what I did this morning is I did one of your channelings. I sat and just connected with your higher self, and I held a little petri dish of water and set the intention that some sort of indication, representation of your frequency would come through to that water. And then I stuck it in the freezer so that it would crystallize for us. Mm-hmm. And I will tell you that the first word that came through when I looked at it is multifaceted. So I'm going to grab that and I'm going to show you the best that I can with this lighting, but I will take a picture and I will send it to you after this. And then wherever you're watching this or listening to it, you'll be able to navigate and find in some way where the photo is. So I'm going to grab that real quick. Always something different comes through. The last interview I did, it almost looked like a tree of life came through. It was one epicenter, and then it all sprang forth almost like a trunk and moving out. And this is similar, but it looks multifaceted. It's like different.
I bet it's going to look like some of my drawings. I just know it. The two, so it's too small for me to see. I'm going to still it later, and then I'll be able to see.
Okay, can you see some of the
patterning? I can see. It does look fairly tree of lifey, because you've got the above and the below. It looks like.
I'm going to take a picture now before it starts melting.
And then with a contrast, that's the way to do it.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm going to do.
So when I drew this picture from after a session with her, it was I'd engaged her because I wanted to find my other fellow souls a little bit more. And of course it worked. But I quickly drew it, and it was these 5 trees with their roots linked. It was cosmic trees.
I love it.
And so you imagine you've got the roots linked, and then you've got the trunks and the canopies. And that, I think it's a little bit like that.
I love that. So I'll play with the contrast and I'll send it. I'll send it to you. Yeah. And I'll pop the picture in the replay here that I send to you. So, my goodness. Thank you so much for this. Do you have any closing thoughts? Anything else that you want to share before we go?
Yeah. Just the thought came to me of, the new fear as we start to expand our knowledge more and more. The new fear is, AI. And we now know that, all of these war images are generated by artificial technology. It's very easy to create a burning car and a dead person and a pile of corpses because AI has now become so very clever at doing it. So we have not only the image we see, which is fear-inducing, we also have this power, and we see it as an almighty power because we use those pieces of kit every day, the technology we use for our life. So much so, we are so very dependent upon using and integrating technology. So it's like a new turn on of fear. And I just want to remind everybody that it could potentially be something disastrous. It could be potentially something incredibly useful. However, AI is not source field. It's not the divine infinite source of creation. It's not that infinite thing. It is a bit of it that's kind of gone and start to find its own little way, and it probably wants its own spirit soul. That's what it's ultimately trying to work out. But it is not the big full deal. And if we remember that, and we remember we are part of this big full source energy field, the prime creator, where we can get anything we want. And AI is, yeah, it's an issue, but it's tiny in comparison. And we have to remember that, because we can plug into the infinite, be the receivers of the solutions, and plug that into AI and create that as something far less negative and possibly potentially positive in the long run. So every time a new huge wave of fear comes through, because of course it's perpetuating from what's gone in the past, right. We need to remember what and who are we. We are, perhaps, I love this thing of nerve endings of the divine. So, in this infinite body. So of course, information could come through each one of us, no matter how tiny and small we think we are.
Yes.
And each piece of that we can feed in, because every thought, now we know every thought, when the ads come up, your thoughts are going into an AI system. So let's program it with our thoughts. Let's
yes,
make sure we keep our frequency high. Let's keep our frequency high in order to make that AI good. And what I was doing was getting other beings to get rid of the dark wadded darkness that was in the AI system. We can get rid of that, just like we get rid of our rubbish from our house every day, or our trash. We can do that, and we can reprogram it. And just to remember, that's it over there, small, and here's infinite everything, and we can plug into that.
I love that. Thank you so much. So amazing. Thank you for taking the time to hang with us. I appreciate you so much. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. And may we all receive the codes that we're meant to receive right now through this transmission to serve our highest and greatest good. I love y'all so much. Have a wonderful day. Bye, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Please like, share, and subscribe. And if you would like to learn more about how I support all of my mission work, Kangen Water, please check the description.